Well, here we are. It's a new week. The cricket continues, and we continue to come to you on Cricbuzz Live, brought to you in association with our fantasy partner, My 11 Circle. Yes, we had a hectic doubleheader Sunday yesterday. We had a super over as well, as is the want on a super Sunday. And today we've got a brand new week and a brand new venue as well in Ahmedabad. It's two teams who have flown in there, probably still getting used to the conditions. It's Punjab and Kolkata for match number 21. Here on the show, I'm joined by Joy Bhattacharjya and Pommie Mbangwa. It's time to say good evening, gentlemen. And I think at the very top, Joy, I'm going to start with the gesture from one of the players. Normally, we look at it as an on-field gesture, what's happened on the field, who's in the team, who's not. But when you talk about 50,000 and Pat Cummins, it's not anything to do with runs or wickets, but that fabulous gesture, Joy, about his donation.
I was delighted to hear about it. I remember Pat Cummins from being a fresh-faced kid in 2014 in the Kolkata camp, and he always had this hunger to know, how can I make a difference? What charities can I visit? And he and Ryan Tendushkar at that point in time went and did quite a bit out there whenever they could. They'd visit local charities and do stuff. He's always wanted to. Of course, in the last couple of editions, they've not had the opportunity really to go out of their hotels. But I think he decided that, and if you see it, it's a very thought out thing. He said that, we're thinking of whether we're playing or not, but we're giving people an opportunity, some joy in these evenings. So what we can do is give them that joy and also help contribute. And I think no words can say it. I think also it's important for somebody to be a leader, and he's led the way by doing it publicly, and that's fantastic.
And I think the voice, Pommie, of someone who's actually out there playing makes a huge difference. All our collective voices for you on the field and on our show, for all of us on the show, we continue to say it, that yes, our thoughts are with everything that's going around, but these are times when everyone's doing their little bit. And for some, it's that 7:30 that they look forward to within the confines of being safe, Pommie.
Yeah, look, if the Indian Premier League is going to help in that way by getting people to sort of stay at home and make sure that they keep themselves out of harm's way, then it's a good thing. It is a difficult thing to understand because there's also a difficulty in terms of trying to help. And Pat Cummins' gesture is a fantastic one. I mean, the fact that he could even think of it and do it and then go through with it it's fabulous. It shows, as Joy is saying, that the guy is compassionate, that he's kind of aware of all that's going on around him. We all have to be aware of what's going on. We all have to be compassionate and sort of try and help where we can help. And as you say, hopefully the tournament and something to look forward to at 7:30 every evening is helping the country at large. There are, of course, a few players, Joy, who, go ahead, make your point and I'll...
Just before that, I want to go to one more point. And, a lot of players are giving, and I happen to know a lot of players personally are donating, personally are doing stuff. And they're saying that, why do we need to tell the world we're doing it privately, And I see their point of view. I only want to put forward one thing in this situation. In 1956, one of the most deadliest diseases in America was polio. Okay, a lot of children were afflicted by polio. And it used to happen all the time. It was rampant. And, there was a lot of fear about vaccines for polio. Nobody likes being pricked with injections and stuff like that. So what happened was, at that time, the star of America, probably the biggest star in America and even in the, the English-speaking world at that time, was Elvis Presley. Elvis Presley went on national television and got himself vaccinated for a polio vaccine. Okay. Within that year, you will not believe it, 80% jump immediately overnight. Okay. And within the next couple of years, almost 95% of America had been vaccinated. By the 70s, polio was over. It's important. We are of people who follow our heroes. So I know a lot of them are doing great good out there. But if you are, also go out there and tell them. There was a great initiative about wearing masks, which was done out there by the commentary team. I think, Pommie, you were a part of that. And I think it is important. It's important to give, but it's also important to publicly give because money is important. The money and the value we give is important, but the stature as public figures, the responsibility and what we do to inspire people or what the cricketers do to inspire people is even more important.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point, Joy. I mean, and there are times when you say that, listen, if you have to just give to a charity at any other time in life, it's okay, it doesn't matter. But these times, the message is as important as the medium itself and what you're doing. I think that's the excellent point that Joy is making. Unfortunately, yes, there have been a few player pullouts, and nobody stands in the way of someone who personally might feel that he'd rather be at another place. Liam Livingston, Andrew Tye, Kane Richardson, Adam Zampa, and the other one, Joy, of course, being Ravichandran Ashwin, who doesn't have to fly internationally, but he wanted to be closer to family. So as far as all of them are concerned, nobody stands in their way. It's not diluting from any other message at all.
No, absolutely. I think anyone who does not feel secure and happy at this point in time has to be given the opportunity to go home. And what happens to players? Two things, and we were talking about it on Saturday as well. One is that if you're sitting on the bench, you have even more time to think about it. And if you see a lot of these players haven't played too many games, that makes it doubly difficult on a player. It always makes it difficult for a player because, you're there, you're not in the action. You're saying, you know what, I'm not even contributing in the field, and you're brooding about it. And it happens to every one of us. If you're in a situation where you can't do anything, you're brooding, that's a problem. I think the one thing that the board can do, and I think they've already done that, is that there was also a couple of these players were worried about how do they get back? Is there a window at the back? Do they get back? Suppose the travel bubble closes. And I think what right now the board is doing, the Indian Cricket Board is doing, and the IPL is doing, is assuring them all, players, commentators, we will find a way, there's a secure way for you all to go home when this is over. That, I think, was an equally important message, which now I think the players have got, saying that, you know what, when this is all over, we will not be left. We will be looked after. We will be taken back home. And that's equally important to the players.
Yeah, I think that's the right message. For me, from the point of view of broadcast, I mean, Joy has given sort of the dugout view and the player management view. But from the point of view of broadcasters, you've been giving the message out. I think that's important. You're the voice of the tournament.
Yeah, look, I think what's important is to just be cognizant of what's going on. It would be kind of foolhardy for us, for everyone, for the organization in itself to sort of feel that we could just carry on going as if, nothing's happening around us. We carry on going, yes, but we carry on going with the acknowledgement that there's a whole lot that's going on around us, that people are in strife, and we're aware they're in strife, and we feel for them. And you know what? Within our circles, there have been people who have been affected as well. So it's not as if, you exist in the bubble, so to speak, and with nothing going on and you cannot be affected. No. It's a case of everyone is together, everybody understands what's happening, but we must go on and will go on, and hopefully can lighten the spirits of those who are, particularly struck, particularly suffering at the time, and maybe we can pull them through in some way.
Yeah, just before we get news of the toss, Joy, your final message. I mean, we've talked about what has been happening from the board's point of view. A few players have gone. Assuming, Joy, you're in a franchise where there are some young players, maybe overseas players, who are still not likely to get to play in the next 3-4 games. What do you do in that scenario?
No, I still send them the message saying you are safe as you can be. You're secure. We'll make sure that you'll get back when this is all over. We'd love you to stay out here. But if you don't, if anyone feels that they personally have an issue, we completely understand it. I think that's the way it's got to be humane, it's got to be clear, and it's got to be an unambiguous message, saying that, okay, this is it, and this is what it is. And I think in situations like this, big companies, big organizations do things called town halls, get everyone together and say, town halls are important. This is a time for everyone to know, even if it's a small step, saying, what, this has happened, because town halls help dispel rumors. In these situations, rumors, worries, those are much more dangerous. Things that you half understand are far more dangerous and far more threatening than things you understand. So be clear. this is what's happening. I'd do a daily bulletin saying, okay, this is what it is. This is the status. This is what's happening, guys. We have this under control. And people say, you know what? I'm hearing it from the very top. It's clear. And that's how I'd like it to be.
Well, in terms of a town hall from that big venue that is the stadium in Ahmedabad, we can bring you the bulletin, the up-to-date bulletin that Kolkata have won the toss. They've decided to bowl first. Obviously, it's a new venue in the sense that no one's played on it in this tournament yet, and they're just getting a feel of it. So I suppose, Pommie, from that point of view, we knew Mumbai was a bowl first pitch in the evening. We knew Chennai was essentially bat first. But here, when you don't know the surface, you'd rather get your 11 in there and get a feel from it first.
Yeah, and what you do know is that it's a decent surface. It's a good surface. I mean, there were internationals that were played there, and everyone will have done their homework in that regard to figure out what kind of pitch it will be or what kind of pitch it has been. And there's no harm in asking your opposition to set a score and trying to chase it when you know exactly what you have to deal with, when you've also had a bit of a clue with the way it has played whilst your opposition has batted on it first. So you kind of keep some sort of control to things. Admittedly, you need to bowl quite well because if you bowl badly and they smash a whole lot, then whilst you come under pressure, don't you? But yeah, I think it's the right way around. I don't think teams these days are too fussed about how many are on the board. They feel they can get them as well. So yeah, the right way to go.
I suppose the one way, Joy, to put things in perspective is to look at the recent history of the ground on two planes. One is the internationals that were played there, which we can see, India versus England. Everyone got an initiation into this particular ground. And the other, of course, is the Syed Mushtaq Ali Trophy. So slight difference in scores there. Of course, slight difference in standard, you might say. But I think by the time India and England came around, that's the most recent.
Yeah, I'd say they sussed out the pitch by the time at the end. And remember one thing, towards the end, the two victories India won were totals they defended. So while it's 2 and 3, teams batting second is still leading. Those were the first 3 matches. Towards the end, what happened? They got a sense of it saying, okay, if you put a decent total on the board, you can win this. But that, remember, happened after playing on the pitch 5 times and then playing before that the test match as well. So by that time, they've sussed out the surface much more. Now, you're going to take in this team who knows the surface. I mean, other than KL Rahul, who else has played regularly on this surface? That's a question you have to ask yourself. All the others are looking at this pitch as a fresh pitch. And that's the point that, if it's definitely a good decision to bowl first when you're going to play on a pitch where you're not very sure. You just know a better sense of what target you have, a less sense of what target you want to set, therefore you want to chase.
Well, I guess that way someone like Owen Morgan will be thinking that I was probably fortunate to be around at that point in time and get a little sneak preview of that surface. So not too many out of the 22 will have been there on those occasions, but Morgan will be one of them. Now, in terms of the lineup,
I think it's a critical point, and I know you say it and kind of and away you go with it, and we'll carry on. But I think it's a critical point because it would have informed the way that he'd have gone about things. And Joy makes a point as well, which, as you're talking, I was thinking we're looking at those graphics about 2-1 chasing and then 3-1, batting sick, the other way around. Okay, so in terms of how things go, if you play on a surface, right? If you play on a surface a few times, one surface, essentially the surface will get tired. And I know it's not one pitch on the ground, but when you play 5 games, invariably you're going to play on 1 or 2 of those a couple of times. And so it's not going to necessarily behave the same way that it did the first time around. And that's why you get a scenario where first time around, you win, you bat first, you smash it, the other guys come, they smash it too, and they beat you. The next time you come around, you bat first, you get a decent score, but the pitch just deteriorates slightly and the opposition come and try and do the same thing, but it doesn't quite work out and they can't chase down the score. So I think it's key. And I think Morgan will know that it's good for them to be playing first there. It's good for them to be playing first because it means then that they can draw on what happened when they were there, and it will happen in the true sense. What they got then is what they'll see now. But 4 or 5 games into it, that might change and it might be different.
What about the 11s? We were just wondering, in a new venue, are we going to see a lot of reshuffling? In our preview, we thought there were some possibilities, but at least as far as Kolkata is concerned, first up, we can tell you that the 11 is unchanged. There are no little asterisks, there are no little highlights over there, which means this is the same 11 that played the previous game, Joy. So no real tinkering as we thought there could possibly be.
Yeah, look, the only thing that they would have looked at is they would have thought about Harbhajan Singh and said, should we hold him and bowl him with Gale up front whenever Gale comes in? Because that's something you look at. But they look at their line and they said, you know what, Gale is not going to be very comfortable against Varun Chakravarti either, nor against Sunil Narayan. So we have a bowler to throw at Gale in case he comes. In case he comes, either Sunil Narayan or Varun Chakravarti should have some. So there are 8 overs of bowling they can throw at him. And they said, you know, perhaps the overall nature of this pitch, because it's not a very big ground. It's a pretty small ground. So playing 3 spinners on this kind of a surface, you know, because if they had to bring in somebody like a Harbhajan, they would have had to drop a Prasanth Krishna. They were probably not sure about that. And that also tells you that they're still not 100% sure about how much Andre Russell is going to bowl. Because if Andre Russell was definitely giving them 4, you might just turn around and say that, do I actually tinker around with playing 1 fast bowler less? But if Andre Russell is going to give them 1 or 2 max, then they might just say that it's not worth the risk. I'll keep the extra fast bowler with me, which is what they've done.
Yeah, that's one possibility. Go ahead.
There's also the issue for them of with their, you know, keeping with their team. I think it's an issue of, you know, you made a mess of one game one way, you made a mess of another game another way. Now, if we just shifted and changed, then nobody really knows how they're supposed to have fixed that. You know, it's early in the tournament, yes, but it's also a case where you have to try and get people, you know, players getting to the balance of what they need to do. If they don't quite get to the balance of what they need to do, then you could have a guy whose mind's not settled all the way through the tournament because you keep playing him and taking him out and playing him and taking him out after errors. So he doesn't actually know how to fix the errors. That top order batting for Kolkata was tentative in the previous game, too tentative. And in the game before that, when they were chasing a big score, yes, they'll say it was a big score and they had to go out at it. But they went too hard and lost too many wickets, and then in the end came short. So they've got to try and find a balance, and it's a good thing that they go again today, having, you know, had a couple of poor games in a row.
Yeah, well, we will maybe quickly talk about one of the Kolkata batsmen since, Pommie, you brought it up, and that is Shubman Gill. Obviously, we know the class, we know the promise, but one thing we seem to have noticed, Pommie and Joy, and I'll come to Joy first, is the fact that he's been dismissed in the power play, right? So 14 innings previous season, only 4 times dismissed in the power play. So what he was doing, he was setting himself up for a big one, which maybe is not happening this season.
Yeah, look, there was only one case among all these where he was absolutely out to a beauty. You know, he just hit the ball and it just found the fielder, you know, which happens. But that's once in 5 innings. The other 4 times, he was struggling to control. I think somewhere in his head, he feels the responsibility of scoring faster, and somehow he's getting frustrated in the early overs. And once he's getting frustrated, if you see those run rates out there, you can see that at least in 3 of those cases, he's been strangled. He's not being able to break through, and he's getting out. And that's something that they should be thinking about. Is it a technical issue? Has he been found out? Because what happens with a lot of players is what I literally call the sophomore curse. You know, last year he was a sensation. He was a guy coming out. This year he'll be targeted. They'll be looking at him. They would have done the analysis. They say, you know what, Shubman Gill likes this. He doesn't like this. So this is where the big boys play. Year 1, you know, you're a kid. You're there. You slip under the system, under the radar. Now the big boys are there. And I think he has the class to do it. He just, as I said, all of them support him. They believe he has a quality of shots. And when he does hit a ball, you just wonder why he even bothers to hit other shots. Because, you know, he'll hit this 6 just fluently over, you know, long on. And you look at him and say, I mean, why doesn't this guy hit 1 and over like that and doesn't need to do anything else? And that's a matter, that he has that talent. Somewhere, the problem is not in his talent. The problem is in the way he's approaching the game right now. I'm sure the senior guys can help him out with that.
Pommie, your take on Shubman Gill? Obviously, from a distance, you will have seen him. You will have known what the potential is. But it's one thing to have potential, another to have exactly what he has. Kolkata have backed him. I mean, we've heard what David Hussey has had to say about Shubman Gill. So, with people backing him, you know that that's the right way to go.
In the game, you generally fail more than you succeed. It's just what it is. There's no question about Shubman Gill's talent. There's no question about the fact that he can bat. He can bat. And man, I absolutely love watching him. And yes, he is an absolute class act. That is true. And he will come good at some point. I think situations, that's the game. The game of cricket is a situational one. Can you, when the situation demands, choose to do the correct thing? And sometimes, even if you choose to do the correct thing, you might not execute it right. Things must align. So we might sit from the outside and look and think, oh, gee, he's not going so well, must be in a bad space mentally. Maybe from the results he might, but in terms of what he's trying to do, how he's trying to do it, he might be on the mark and it just might not be coming off. And yes, that does kind of build pressure on a guy if it goes on and on and on. I think what's not helping is the fact that there are all these others as well who are not getting runs. So you're in a team where you think, I should be trying to start quickly. I should be trying to pierce the field and trying to get us, at 8s and 9s, maybe 7.5s and to 8.5 in the beginning in the power play, because that is my job. And that's what I'm looking to do, but it's just not happening. He's just got to keep going. What do they say? Trust the process. I've heard a great man say that before. So yeah, he's got to keep going with whatever the process is, because he is class. He'll come good. No doubt about that in my mind anyway.
Before we look at the Punjab 11, gentlemen, I'm going to borrow Joy's job for a second and ask you a quiz question, gentlemen. Other than Owen Morgan, which other international player played all 5 T20 internationals in the Ahmedabad Stadium? Joy?
I think it's Chris Jordan.
Good answer, Chris Jordan. Doesn't it logically make sense that he should come into the Punjab 11? Well, he has. That's why I was asking you the question.
Gautam.
There you go. Fabian Allen out, Chris Jordan in. Makes sense, Pommie Mbangwa.
Yeah, look, I think what it says is they feel they don't need another spin option because that's what he provides. Chris Jordan can also whack some, by the way. Perhaps not as well as Fabian Allen would in terms of the skew, batter or bowler in terms of all-rounder. So he's a bowling all-rounder, whereas I'd look at Fabian Allen as a batting all-rounder. And yeah, there's that obvious change of spin to pace. I think he's a good contributor in whatever side he goes into, Chris Jordan, because of his bowling, yes, and the fact that he can bowl at the death, but also because he's a very good fielder, good hands, good pace across the ground. And in this format, we just treated yesterday, weren't we, to what all-rounders can do, particularly when they're at the top of their game by Ravi Jadeja. So, he's a good addition, Chris Jordan, to any side. And talk also of his experience and ability to stay calm when the pressure comes. Not if the pressure comes all the time. And he is able to stay calm in those situations. So yeah, hopefully he has a good start, and hopefully they don't, use him like a yo-yo as they did last season. They kept having him in and out and in. I think bowlers also need to be backed. And in this game, particularly in this type of game where you can fetch, I mean, anyone can fetch. It doesn't matter who it is. And so the fact that a guy goes for some doesn't necessarily mean he's got it totally wrong. It means they've got a hold of him on the day. They got a hold of him on the day. But if he's a class bowler and an experienced guy, then he'll come through. I probably should get that.
Yeah, there you go. Joy, very quickly, as Pommie gets a few more. I think he wanted some tips on that final score at the end of the game. But have a look at picking your teams. You know you've got Chris Jordan to choose from. It's not just Fabian Allen. He's out, Jordan's in. So make sure you note that change when you download the app. Get your 11 in place and pick a captain and a vice captain. We also will give our little contribution to all of you with our My 11 Circle smart picks. And no, we haven't chosen Fabian Allen as one of them. We were well ahead of our game. Chris Gayle, Andre Russell, Mohammad Shami. Yes, so many people are talking about the big two, the big six hitters. We're not sure it's necessarily going to be six hitting, but Gayle has shown a new side to him this time, Joy, that he can adapt his game and bring the experience to the table.
Yeah, I think he's done a great job. That innings was an innings of great character. It's what his team needed. And because it was, people tend to forget that Chris Gayle is a very smart player. And Chris Gayle, every time you think that he's a one-dimensional player, look at the back of that shirt. That 333 was a test score. It wasn't a one-day score. Chris Gayle can defend with the best of everybody. Just because he's a great offensive player doesn't mean he can't. And he's a very, very, very intelligent player. And I think he needs to do it. So I back him. The other thing is Chris Gayle against his teams who've played before, teams he's played for before. He likes playing them. And the first time he played against Kolkata after Kolkata came back and he was released in the auction, Kolkata scored 171 and I think he scored a century and they made it with about 4 overs to spare. So he loves playing against old friends, as they say, and reminding them that perhaps it was not the brightest idea not to take him in the auction. Chris Gayle likes, telling that to previous teams. So that record of his is hardly a surprise to me.
Well, I think it's true of a few players in this tournament. The other day we talked about Maxwell, and wait till he comes up against his old mates who he used to play for. But for the moment, let's talk about the other big six-hitter who's going to be on the field. He had an opportunity a couple of times, did Andre Russell, and we've sort of brought up his record against Mohammad Shami. Of course, we like to get our head-to-heads up there and have a look at that record between Andre Russell and Mohammad Shami. Pommie.
Yeah, look, you don't want to be Mohammad Shami, do you? In that scenario, goodness. 77 as an average. He's smashing him, and he's smashing him at a strike rate of 285 as well. That said, I just said not so long ago, if you're a bowler, if it's the day that you're going to go, you go. That's what happens. And particularly if you come up against guys like Andre Russell, who can hit it a long way. In that innings where he left one off Sam Curran, man, you just imagine if he had continued. If he had continued for 10 more balls, not the whole innings, just 10 more balls, they'll disappear. That's how destructive he can be. I think he'll be happy with the surface. I think it's important to have him in your team. You wouldn't not want to have him in your team if you're picking your fantasy picks, because he too is an all-rounder. He bowls, he bats, and sometimes he won't bowl, yes, but it's I suppose it's the gamble you take, because he can provide for you in a couple of areas.
Yeah, well, now you've got me in two minds, Pommie, because as we have this discussion, I'm also, as involved picking my 11 Circle team. So yes, Russell, no Russell. Remember, he doesn't come cheap. So you've got to keep that in mind as well. You've got to spend wisely. What about Mohammad Shami himself? It's not that he always gets smashed by everyone. Maybe it was Andre Russell. But when he plays against Kolkata, Joy, of course, he's familiar with Kolkata. We know what he's done in test matches in Kolkata for Team India. But this is very, very different. This is Shami wearing red of Punjab, and he's picked up those 3 wickets, Gill, Tripathi, Karthik, and he'll have memories of that.
He loves bowling, and this is a comparatively, if you look at it compared to other teams, it's a comparatively young, it's a domestic top order. Shubman has played a couple of matches for India, but he's not a regular as yet. And Shami against, batting like that, he's a quite lethal bowler. He can bowl at 125, 145. He can swing it if there's any swing. If there's no swing, he still will get a little bit off the wicket because, his seam position is so fantastic. So Shami is great there. Yes, and I don't see it as being any different from him getting hit by Russell, because if he's going to be bowling at the death, and if at the death he doesn't get his, Yorkers or this exactly right, he's going to go. So I think that Shami can both be a wicket taker up front and be somebody who can be hit at the death. And especially by this, Having said that, I believe as a team, overall, I feel Kolkata matches Punjab very well. For some reason, because Punjab's advantages are to a certain extent nullified. So this is actually Kolkata's best chance to get their campaign on the rails.
Yep, certainly is. But, since we've been talking so much about T20 cricket and where it stands now, what we are going through, it's time, at times like this, when you get into a discussion, you start looking at the future of T20 cricket. And while we can have a discussion, it's always good to get other points of view, to see what people have to say. And this is something we've brought you a little excerpt from an article, which I think is worth reading. And look who's contributed to that. It's no less than Faf du Plessis. And if you look at what Faf du Plessis has to say, if you want to know more about this is the kind of stuff you can find on Cricbuzz Plus. It's not just what we've talked about. It's the game. It's today. It's here and now. It's going ahead. It's going into the future. So now that Faf du Plessis has set this up, and now that all of you are already tempted to subscribe to Cricbuzz Plus, Joy, your views, because I think this sort of inevitably leads us to professional football, doesn't it?
I have been advocating this for a very, very long time, because there is not a game in the world which is professionally played. I mean, there's games like archery and all, which are not really professional in that sense. It's more amateur, more Olympics. But if you see any professional sport, volleyball, you see basketball, you see football, all these sports, you play for your country about a couple of months a year, unless it's a World Cup year or something, and you play for your club 8, 9, 10 months a year. That's how it breaks up. Normally 8, 9 months for a club, couple of months for your country, and then a month of rest or 2 months of rest or recuperation. That's it for sport. Because you see, no other sport has the amount of international play, one-on-one international play that cricket does. So inevitably, as these leagues rise, what you're going to see is that these are going to slowly drop off. The only difference between this and international leagues is that what happens in international leagues is you're playing one league 6-7 months a year. You're playing 40 games in the Premier League at one shot, over 7 months. And then you may be playing, a couple of other championships, maybe the FA Cup on the side, maybe the Champions League. But you have one major thing which goes on for 7 months. In cricket right now, there's no one competition that goes on for more than 2 months. Okay. And the other thing is, if you see international football, a guy is actually a part of one franchise. So Lionel Messi is Barca. Okay, that's who he plays for. Or Ronaldo is Juventus. In this case, you could be Dhaka Gladiators and Kolkata Knight Riders and not Rangpur Riders and Kolkata Knight Riders and Peshawar Kings and another team from the big
Melbourne Renegades,
Sydney Sixers. So that's the one thing which is different. That whatever happens, Messi doesn't have to look at his wardrobe, open it, and wonder which jersey am I supposed to pick out today? Which club do I pay for? Whereas in international cricket, you have a lot of that.
Yeah.
That's interesting, and I wonder if we would ever get to a place where there would be sort of a globe-trotting league. Do you know what I mean? Because if you got, all the countries to sort of form whatever their leagues are, and there'll be 2020 leagues, and whatever their teams are and franchises, and then kind of had what I would think of as a Champions League, but not really as a regular league. I don't think we'll, never say never, but I don't think it's going to go that way. I think it's going to continue in the way that it is, where you have countries with their various leagues and players are able to go from league to league. What I might sort of be in agreement with is that in the future, it might revert to what we see in terms of other sports, where national sport is not a regular occurrence. It's at an appointed time, as is the case right now with IPL or with Big Bash. So that too will have its window, let's say. And when that window is on, there will be various matches going on all over the place, where India will play whoever, and Australia will play whoever, and South Africa will play whoever, and Zimbabwe will play whoever, and England will play whoever. and that goes on, say, for a month, maybe 2 months. I don't know if it's 3 months, whatever it is, and then everyone reverts back to their club, and their club being their franchise that they play for in whatever T20 tournament. I wonder. Yeah. It's casting an eye on a crystal ball and trying to see what's in the future. But yeah, I think that might go in that direction. But it's a long way away.
All we know is the point to ponder, and it's the kind of thing that you can find, as we said, on Cricbuzz Plus that sets out a conversation. I think 50 over cricket, we see a lot of that. Are we looking at only 4 over? I mean, at once every 4 years, the World Cup being the one of importance and everything else being, well, not as important. But again, points to ponder, Joy. We could go on having this conversation for a long time. For now, let's just revert and divert from my little quiz question to the more important question that you ask every day.
Okay, here's your question. The last person to accomplish this test match feat was named, and I say nicknamed, after a jazz musician, and the one before him had the nickname of an action hero. What is this feat in Test cricket? The last person to accomplish this feat in Test cricket had a nickname after a jazz musician, and the one before him a nickname after an action hero. What is the feat?
Yes. I have a bit of a hint. I'm not giving anything away. Straight after the show finishes, I'm going to try and guess it. I'm sure Pommie's got his thoughts on it, but don't give anything away, because I know everybody is grabbing their phones and their tablets and sending out the answer. Hashtag Cricbuzz Live is the way to send it back to us. So, Pommie, instead of giving the answer away, give us a number. 20 over 4 for
yeah, I thought you might come to me first. I thought you might, I am gonna go for 182.
182, fair enough. I think we wouldn't want to be too ambitious. New ground, and yet it's not a 140 type ground. Joy, while you're pondering, I'm going to go a lot lower. Shall I? I'm going to go 156. 156 for Punjab.
You don't like Punjab, do you?
No, to be honest, I was planning to go on exactly the same figure. I was planning to go 157 for some reason, because I have a feeling Punjab might, in their urgency to win, they might misjudge this surface. But you've taken 156, so I'll go 172, which is somewhere in between, safely between you two guys.
Fair enough.
I always knew you didn't like Punjab. Well, not that you don't like them, you just like Kolkata better.
Yeah, well, let's just say in terms of geography, Joy and I have a lot in common in terms of where we live and where we are from, which is completely in common. But
just see this color. I tried to choose the one color which sat most comfortably between red and purple. I mean, how close can you get?
You tried, but you failed. You tried.
Pommie, I have red and purple cohabiting.
That is called trying to hide, but your words give you away.
Well, there you have it. Once again, before we leave you, I think we're getting the message out from everywhere, but I think from all of us in the Cricbuzz Live team, Joy, Pommie, myself, the entire team, I think we would also like to remind all of you, we are bringing this show to you from the comfort of our homes, and everyone putting together from respective areas, staying safe. So all of you, I think it sounds cliched, but it's a very simple step to take. Wash your hands, wear masks, stay safe, don't go out unnecessarily, and allow us to bring to you what we can. Allow the IPL to bring to you what they can in terms of entertainment, and hopefully we shall see everything taking a turn for the better. For now, we'll be back in 10 overs time on Cricbuzz Combox, and we'll resume the conversation as we will in the halfway point of the show, of the game. This is Cricbuzz Live, brought to you in association with our fantasy partners, My 11 Circle.